One of those stories which really made me emotional when I first heard it, there were two of the prisoners in my class. They were in there for selling drugs. And don't think that selling drugs is not really much of a crime. Those drugs create huge problems for families. They split up families, they kill people, they ruin people's lives. It's a terrible thing, to take drugs or sell drugs. So they had got into a little business of selling drugs. And they were in jail. And there was close to this jail, there was a local primary school. And the principal of this primary school, if I had a hat, I'd take it off to her. She was a very courageous and wise principal. Because in primary schools, even like 10 or 11-year-old kids sometimes get involved in drugs in places like the US or Australia or UK. And she wanted to do something for her children to try and make sure they never get tempted to take drugs. Probably that happens in Malaysian schools, I hope. They're out there, they're available. If you really want it, you can get it in KL. And you've got to try and get your children to make sure they never go close to those things. So this principal wanted to have some sort of class program presentation. And instead of getting some professor from university or some sociologist who could talk all the theory but wasn't real, she invited two prisoners to come and talk to her children about drugs. Two people who'd been there, taken the drugs, sold the drugs, and knew the pain of the consequences personally, and could actually teach these children what drugs are really about and what it does to you and how it ruins your whole life and family. Now, it was a very courageous thing she did, because many of the parents would say, how would you allow prisoners and drug addicts to come and teach our kids? What are you doing? No, she was wise enough, because these were real people who'd actually been there and done that and could speak from personal experience. And so they spent the whole afternoon teaching many, many classes about what happens, really happens, not with facts and figures, but with the pain of their lives. And you can imagine the effect that had on his children. But not just the effect on those children. One of those men, the prisoners, took me to this board, because in this primary school, the teachers had been so impressed with what these two men had taught their kids that when it came to their art class, asked the kids to send little cards saying thank you to these two prisoners, and had all these cards from these 10 or 11-year-olds. No, thank you so much. I'm never going to take drugs. Thanks. Well, I've heard how it hurt you. No way. Hope you get out soon. Love, Sarah. And all these little cards from these kids. And when these men showed me those cards, these hard prisoners, they were weeping. Tears were rolling down their face. Why? Because they'd done something good and wonderful to make sure that many, many of those children never follow the path that they got drawn into, that they would be free of that pain. No, that's not punishment. This is actually using the resources. And I say that if you have done that crime, you know more than anybody else what it's like. You should be the ones going into those schools or into those universities, telling what really happens when you do things like that. Then it is real and powerful. It has a huge effect. So instead of punishing, we actually make use of whatever we have done in our life and turn it around and make mangoes out of dog poo.